Okay, good evening. My name is Pete Berube. I'm Chair of the Finance Committee. I'm going to call to order the 9 March meeting of the Finance Committee. Just ask, do we get started? We are all of us that are here are in person. This will be our first, it's like a little bit of a homecoming, where we're all here in person, and we don't have anybody connecting via Zoom, which is our intent for the rest of the way. God willing that there's no more quarantines and COVID outbreaks, so we're grateful for that. And Jim, if you would start us off with a brief introduction?
Sure. How you doing?
Or John, I'm sorry, John.
Oh, John.
I'm John Stedman.
Oh,
Peter Underhill.
Joyce Boyardi.
Jim Boardman.
Kathy McInnes.
John Lore.
Great. And so we're going to hop right into it when our first budget presentation is by Mr. Jim McKay. Thanks, Jim.
thank you, Mr. Chair. First, before we get started, I'd like to congratulate the Recreation Committee on a well-deserved award. Congratulations to Chris and her committee for putting out, that's a pretty prestigious award. And it goes to a person that's very dedicated to her position and does a fantastic job.
We second that for sure.
And a brief update, the DPW building, for all you know, that we're in the DPW facility now. It's up and running. Both the staff building and the mechanics bay with wash bay, that's all operational. And again, very grateful to the Millis residents who supported this great project for the DPW staff. And most importantly, to the Permanent Building Committee that saw this through from the very beginning, and they've been working on it for many, many years, and helped us and saw this project through to its completion. Next, we can, just a brief update on the PFAS plant that's being built for wells 1 and 2, and that will be located also at 7 Water Street. If you all remember where the old dog barn, it's out in the woods a little ways. It's up in the hill, so when you go to the DPW, it's up on the hill. And that bid that came in, it was a little higher than what was expected. So we will have an article on this year's meeting, and I'm sure the town administrator will talk about that later when we get a little closer on the funding needed for that. We originally thought the bid was, last November, we allocated $5.6 million for that project. And actually with a contingency that we need for the project, the select board really want some sort of a contingency. We're going to need $6.1 million for that. So we're going to be looking for an additional $500,000 approval at town meeting. Most of that is the contingency. So we're not starting the project without any contingency. We asked that the engineering firm Kleinfelder, we asked them to do so much work with a not to exceed $150,000 to get the project up and running. But we do have enough funding of the bid came, it's Winston Builders, and that bid came in at 5.1 million? Yeah, almost 5.2, that's correct. It was 5,100,000 and something thousand, so I would say 5.2. So we will, even starting the job, we will have enough for the contract to be signed. We will have a contingency already there, and engineering funds will also be available for that.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may.
A point of clarification, just the contingency funds, if they're not used for construction, they do get returned to the general.
Absolutely
This is just
correct.
for
Absolutely.
general
Yes.
information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so,
Go ahead, Joyce.
Nothing, thank
yeah.
you.
so next update, we usually update the board, usually at this time when I come, on the snow and ice budget. I think I gave you a copy of that, and it's online. Right now, we're in deficit of $109,431.55, and that does not include whatever we're doing this evening. The select board approved that we could exceed the budget, allowed the town administrator to let us exceed, the expenditures in that line item.
I'm just going to make a quick comment because some of us are new and some of us may just not remember. But snow and ice is one of the few, or perhaps even the only, budget line that is allowed to operate in deficit. So there'll be an article likely to add FY23 dollars to an FY '22 line. And if Carol could just give me you're right or you're close.
Oh, you're right.
Got it. Okay. It's just for everybody's awareness how that works.
So why don't we start with the general fund budget? I know in your books that you're gonna have to bounce around because I think everybody's in, so I'll announce which ones we're gonna go through. So the general fund budget, you can see our budget narrative. I would encourage everybody to, read these budget narratives. I don't think I'm gonna read every single line item, because when we get into the stormwater one, there's like 5 pages of, what was done and what was accomplished last year, and what we plan on accomplishing this year.
Jim, if you could just do us one favor, I'm sorry to
Yes.
keep interrupting you.
Nope.
But as you go from one section to another, if you could just hold up what you're
Yep,
looking at,
I can do
it'll
that.
give us the visual
Yep, yep.
of what
So
to
the
look
next
for.
page is the staffing history page. And we'll get to I thought they were, when the select board got theirs, they were in order.
So they get better
I
ones.
tried
It's like
to,
halfway through.
I
Thank you.
tried to put it in there.
Oh, boy.
It is Form 3.
Form 2.
Got it.
Form 3.
So as part of the, I would like to point out, in FY '22, with the Form 3, the town meeting approved a new full-time employee to offset, it definitely offset some of the discussion that was made through our Paradigm survey that was done. It's Paradigm, correct? Paradigm, they had done a survey of the DPW, and they tried to, weigh in the cost of staffing between water, sewer, general, and stormwater. And their recommendation was that, that there would be 2 full-time people be added to the general fund. Last year, town meeting approved that there was 1 full-time person added to that. And it's definitely helped, and it's definitely has gone a long way with easing a lot of the work that would be assigned to water and sewer and stormwater employees. That this person has done has done all general fund type work, whether that be cutting grass, weed whacking, cleaning, and not that he doesn't assist with water and sewer issues either, but it's definitely, and I think we're going to be able to show that when we show all DPW staff, I'll get this out now so we don't have to talk about it later. Each DPW staff, when they come in and when they're done at the end of the day, we call it an ESS system. It's a payroll system that they go in and they actually punch in their hours of what they work that day. So if they work 2 hours on general fund, we don't ask them to round it down to 15, 5, 10, 15.
Yeah.
It's a couple hours here and there. And we feel it's been very successful. And we're running a report for the select board that's going to be presented to them by, in April 1st, right around that time, April 1st, they're going to get that presentation. That'll show, the tracking of it. We started tracking that back this whole fiscal year, almost July 1st of '21 through now. So that's through all the departments. And that's why, if you see, we went from 3.27 in FY '21 to 4.52 full-time FTEs.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if is it time to ask a question that.
Sure, if it's relevant to this.
It is. Have you requested a general employee, full-time?
I have not, in this budget, I did not put in for it. It was not that I had even asked for the one in the previous year. It was done through the budgetary
Okay.
process,
Good.
through the town administrator, and, if it's available, the funding for it. But it's known that we
There
had
was a
needed.
study, as you all remember me hearing last year, that 2 full-time employees, and that second one that would take away a lot of the indirect costs that are going to water and sewer because they're working. And I think it would better separate the responsibilities. So I wish someone would consider, I think in the long run, the town will save money by having something like that, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
It doesn't start from here, though. I'm just making that suggestion.
Correct.
I've got a question that's certainly related. The FTEs that are listed here, if they're not whole body, whole FTEs, are they part-time within the DPW, or is that a proration across the enterprise?
So that would be, like you see, 0.75, that is, and then all employees that work for the DPW are 40-hour positions. So they're 25%, most of them are on the stormwater, because the similarity of.
No, I understand, I'm
together.
just wanting, so in other words, for sake of example, the person or the position listed there is Maine, there's another .25 someplace
That's
else,
absolutely
likely
correct.
within the enterprise,
Yes,
one of the
they are.
enterprise funds.
They are.
Yes.
Not necessarily, and there's no distinction on this budget sheet as to whether somebody is full-time or part-time. They likely are, do you have any part-time employees that are not annotated?
No, the only part-time employee we have is an administrative assistant
Administrative staff.
that works for water and sewer funds. But-
Thank you. I'm just trying to, for
Yep.
clarity, because the enterprise funds, this has come under a lot of scrutiny in the last couple of years, well-deserved, and I think, the point that Kathy's bringing up and the work that's been done is getting it corrected or more accurate. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And just if I might ask one last
Yep.
question. Do you feel that, it was stated, though, Jim, at a meeting, that you were okay with the indirect costs being what they are? And you weren't there to either say yes or
Yeah.
no.
We're working on it. I can't say that I'm fully behind exactly. My belief in the way the allocations of the staffing, I think that's an easy way that can be worked out. I think and we are working on it, and I think the town is doing it.
Maybe by another employee, Mr. Chair, and I'll
Right.
close at that.
But I think my concerns are more in the indirect costs that go from it's back into the general fund.
Does everyone know what indirect costs are, Mr. Chair? We've got so many new people. Maybe we can set
We
aside
can
a
talk
meeting
about
to
that.
discuss that, to explain that.
Why don't you talk about, maybe you can
Well,
cover
the
it when we
indirect
get to
costs,
the enterprise
we're-
funds.
We're going to talk about that when we get to the
Good.
enterprise funds. Absolutely.
Okay?
So next, I have the Highway Division budget.
Okay.
That's the all the lines. I mean, everything that you see is highlighted is increases that we're requesting. I mean, it's not a done deal, but we are requesting. Most of these funds have been, were taken away in 2019 when we had, some budget cuts, and I am asking to replace them. A lot of these are contractual increases that have occurred over the past few years that need to be, reinstituted back to their original costs. I know if we look at the tree care line item, you see that we had 15,000 and I asked for an increase of 10,000 in that. I believe the town administrator in the next couple of weeks, we're going to try to address that a little differently. Instead of looking for a warrant article every town meeting, I think we've gone for the past 3 or 4 and asked for $25,000, $50,000. I think he's trying to work out to see what funding will be available just to add it to that line item instead of every year. And then the tree warden will work with the DPW on what specific areas in town need that funding. The same with the, when we get into we haven't gotten into my capital items, but hopefully we can do that with paving. Somehow we can bake that into this budget instead of coming back every single year, but it's just what's available, each year. If we put down that we're going to put $100,000 into paving every single year, if it's not there, what's going to get cut for that in the next year? So I think that's something that the finance director, myself, and the town administrator are going to hopefully work out in the next couple of weeks to have it ready for town meeting. And if I corrected that, I think I stated that all correctly. I
Mr.
don't want to speak
McKay,
for them, but
the meal allowances, is that for like a stipend for your plow operators?
correct.
Okay.
And that's being negotiated, that hopefully that'll go away soon.
Mr. Chair, could someone refresh my memory on what was the amount given at town meeting on the warrant article last year for extra paving?
It was, let's say 150, it was 140-something K.
Okay.
It-
And are you asking for that this year through the chair?
I did ask for, in a capital item, I asked for 160K.
160, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think we'll get to capital requests as, coming up.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Sedgwick.
Mr. McKay, you've circled all the items here that are increases, but as I look through your package, those same dollars and items are listed in the budget request above spending levels. So that's just more detail on that?
That's just more detail for you, so it's
So that's not-
easier reading.
That's, okay, but it's not actually an above-budget request. So you don't have any above-budget request that is not in this budget sheet, is that correct?
Well, they are, because in FY '22, what you see,
In
what
red.
town meeting adopted, so I am asking
They
for
are
an increase.
increases.
Yes.
But they're in both places.
They're in both places.
We don't count them twice.
No.
Okay.
No. No,
That's the
I'm not
clarification
asking
I was
for,
looking
what, $3,000 here and then
increase.
another $3,000
Right,
and that.
okay.
correct. It's one
You've
3,000.
incorporated what's on the budget request above service level into your budget.
Into the budget, correct. And it's not approved. by any
Just
means.
and perhaps a question for later, you don't need to answer it now, but is that consistent across all departments, Carol? Okay, so your question is excellent, and it's something to be noted, because in some instances, I've noted that departments, they will request additional, you'll see additional funding for FY '23. A lot of it times it's due to, increases in wages that are either negotiated or some other reason that they're going to go up. And then but then the above-level service request is not in the FY '23
correct.
request line. It is separate.
This is the only department I noticed that
Yep.
in as I went through the whole book. That's why I wanted the clarification, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
See,
Kudos
so
And thank you, Jim.
I guess I misunderstood that, how to do that, because I thought that was the way to, because the only increases you see in the salary line item is myself, because they're all under contract
Yeah.
negotiations and stuff like that. That's, so that, I think that answers what my next page was the above service line item, the Form 6, I think that's where you got that
Yes,
from?
sir.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk all capital items at the very end, which includes the paving, the pickup truck, and all that. We'll talk about that at the very end when we get done. So is there any more questions about the general fund before we get into, I think what next is what, snow and ice?
Yes.
If you would just
Sure.
pause for 1 second, I want to look at the Form 6.
Yep. It's good, because I got to go back to the page I was on.
On your Form 6, your expenses, if you could briefly just describe the increases
Yep.
for police details, is that in the sense that that they're, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell us why that
They-
10,000.
Their rates went up.
Yeah.
Their rates went up, and I believe they're in their contractual rates, it's gonna go up. And if you look, usually it goes, that's one of the line items that is in deficit each year. When we have special projects, that does not come out of that. So if we have like a water project, that's usually baked into the prices of the water project, or road paving, that's all built into that too, Chapter 90. So this is just strictly work of when we clean catch basins out, or we have guys patching roadways, painting the lines in the street and stuff like that.
Do you project if the town is going to be doing more work, for instance, we just allocated or appropriated more funding last fall town meeting for additional road work, then not only will their rates go up, but you may have more details. Do you think this will cover the more details needed as well?
Right, so I would usually cover that so the allocations for the 140-something thousand that was given for paving at last year, that's all been spent, and the details came out of that.
Okay.
That line item.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just ask through the chair how much is in the kitty right now You know what you're getting from Chapter 90 funds
Sure.
already, and is there rumors that it may be higher or
Yep.
lower?
If you can just give me 1 second.
Maybe it's a question for down the road.
No, we can, I
Okay.
think it would best be, because that's part of the general fund. So there are rumors going around that, that when the governor releases the budget, there could be a large increase into Chapter 90 funding. The town of Millis is on a 10-year spree of what's been allocated to the town, and that is $277,982.96. So we know that for the next 10 years, I think we're in the next 7 years, because I think we're in the third year of that.
That's
We
what
know
we'll
we're
be
going to be
getting
getting that
every
amount. We did have left over from last year, Chapter 90 expenditures. We had $153,356.71. And the balance that was left over from town meeting was $23,650.71. So right now, we know that today that we can put out to the street for bidding is $454,990.38. But out of that, we can't, it can't go out to bid until the appropriation is applied on July 1st.
Right.
From the Chapter 90 funding. So we know we have a good sizable amount, but.
It's not enough.
It's not. I mean, if you look at what we did last year, we did a significant amount of paving last year. We spent over $500,000. And the year before that, we spent about almost 400,000, 300-something thousand. So that $160,000. And, I encourage everybody to go online. It's what we did last year, and the cost with details and all that is online of what was paved. I think last year was probably the largest paving that we've ever done in town, and all the time I've been here, it's the largest group of paving. So that town meeting appropriation goes a long way. I mean, that did Spencer, Spring Street paving with the speed humps, whatever, we like them or not, they're there.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Chair, that if anybody finds any extra money, I think it would really behoove the residents to have, one of the top issues should be funding the roads.
Could you give us a minute or two, a synopsis of what you would spend, what are the priorities remaining, or the next priorities?
Sure. So I actually did a presentation when I did with my request for the $160,000. I did ask for, sidewalks to be included in some of that, in that expenditures. But to do a sidewalk, you need engineering design for those projects. And you need to have that done well in advance of the projects to be put out to bid. And those sidewalks that were going to be added was going to be, not a lot, but, some was to be added on Pleasant Street. There's a good stretch of Pleasant that were, I'd say about 300 feet, that it starts from Village Street, it goes so far, and then there's nothing. And then if you go up close to Primavera, near the
It's there.
apartments there, it starts up again. And I think if that was connected, I know I spoke about this the last time, we'd be able to walk from the Charles River, not the Neponset River. We'd be able to walk from the Charles River to Oak Grove Farm. And that's a pretty significant area. Another design.
Charles River at the Norfolk border.
Correct.
Good.
Yes. Another section would be, of sidewalks would be added on, with Pleasant Street, there would be also paving. It wouldn't just be the sidewalks, we would pave it also. The same would be on Plain Street, would replace the sidewalks that are, they're not, you can't even walk on them, they're so far gone. And there would be an addition from the high school entrance at the high school, middle school entrance driveway to the gas station on Route 109, so people could walk to the school.
Including paving, plus
And
paving?
that would be including paving. And then, they have a tough job too, because like myself, I get emails, phone calls. I got one today, and Kathy had to listen to me complain about it, from residents, and it's
Yeah.
very frustrating
Yeah.
to me that,
But they're right.
I want to do it. I mean, I'd love to do it, but the funding is just not
Yeah.
there for me to do it. There's so many people say, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. A new things come up with 109. I mean, if we all drive 109 from Medway to Hammond Lane, is it Hammond, not Hammond, is it, yeah, it's Hammond Lane. And we did do it, we measured it ourselves, we did not, this hasn't gone out to bid, but, you know, we're looking at 264 tons of asphalt, and that's 2 inches, because on that road, you want to go down 2 inches to, because it's a heavily traveled road. Now, I did a cost of $110, and that's what was 2 years ago, and last year we paid less than $80 a ton. 2 years ago, we paid $110, so let's say 110, you know, let's just, because it is a guess.
And what was it?
We're looking at 227,000 just for the asphalt aspect of it. That doesn't mean milling it, that doesn't mean
Doing the
tacking it,
work.
painting it, fixing the manhole covers and all that. So if we do that, and if the select board direct me to do that, that's what we're gonna do. I mean, because, you know, I report to them, and if that's what, you know, they choose that they.
What are you recommending for that? I heard you say $454,000 available to go to bid. Are the first two projects, Pleasant and Plain, sidewalks and paving, your recommendation?
That
and
would
then-
be, that would be, you know, that is my first recommendation.
Okay.
And if we get the extra funding, I would definitely look at sections of Route 109. Because when you use Chapter 90 funding, you can't do half a road. But if I have funding from the town meeting vote, we can do anything we want with it. We can do, you know, sections and sections. I would use that to replace those sections on 109. You know, do long strips of it, whether it be 100 feet, 300 feet of it, and only do a half a lane, you know, instead of doing curb to curb. I mean, that's 30-something feet wide. And that's why there's so much there. I mean, there's so much footage in that area. And then next on my idea would be, there's a section up on Exchange Street that I've been wanting to do for 3 or 4 years. If we all drive up Exchange Street, when they put the sewer project in, Kathy, 16 years ago? Something around there,
Yeah,
when they brought the
least.
sewer down. It's deteriorated, it's sunk
Yeah.
down, so I would do that. There's a section that I would do on Exchange Street to.
Is that by Oak Grove Farm? through the
Correct,
chair?
across
Okay.
from Oak Grove,
Okay,
actually more on the Cassidy side.
yeah.
And then go from there. I mean, the Myrtle Street, it's another one, Myrtle in between, it's just a,
We know that there's more work
Yes.
than there will ever be money for,
I-
trust
I-
me.
What I fear is that what Melissa's gonna get caught, that we're not gonna have anything ready. If the governor comes out with something that we need to have a shovel-ready project job and get it done within a year, we're not gonna have anything. Because with sidewalks and stuff like that, you have to have it designed. I did get prices, and it's in the, I mean, we've already talked about you know, both of them are, the Pleasant Street, I believe, is like 25,000, and the Plain Street's 34.
To
One's
design
34
it.
To design
Design
it,
it.
correct. That's just to design it,
We
correct.
should get that money right away.
Yeah. Which it is available, because I can actually submit that to the Chapter 90 to release those funds, because we do have that available. That funding of 150, I think it was, I said, 153, you know, we could put a job in today, because that's our money. It's already been given to us. We just haven't expended it yet.
I mean, it amounts to that the state is not going to give any town a blank check.
No.
And if your project is not designed, that's what it would basically be, a blank check. So
Yep.
you have to have the
Yep.
scope of work defined and the work and all the due diligence done before they'll give you the money to get it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask you one question
Yep.
about the exchange area across from
Yep.
Oak Grove? Why did Toll Brothers not take care
They,
of it?
they, as part of the agreement, and they did what they were supposed to do. They ripped up the old sewer, and they replaced where they had to do it.
But wasn't there talk about them doing that area?
They never, we tried to, and, you know, we pushed, and we got, you know, concessions on different things, and they just, you know,
They
you
dug their
can't.
heels in.
Yeah, and they did. You know, I can report, we finally got the gas company to fix the section coming from the Stone Arch Bridge, that gas trench, because I told them I wasn't gonna sign any more permits anymore, so they're gonna come out this spring and hopefully
Great.
take care of that
Great.
section there.
All right.
I just want to mention, Mr. Chair, that Toll Brothers has been very the town got a lot from Toll Brothers.
Oh, I'm
You
not
know,
disputing
and you asked,
that.
I know you asked for that, but at some point, they're saying like, wait a minute here,
I wasn't
Yeah,
disputing that. I
yeah.
agree that they have, but there had been conversation about them taking care of that. So
Right,
that's why I
yeah,
wondered
yeah.
why what happened.
It was a change in engineering person. It just didn't happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
real close.
Yep. So, I don't know why I don't have my. General fund. Let me get to snow and ice, I think is next. I think that's in your.
That's
is
what
that
you
how
had
you go?
said we were going to next.
Yep, snow and ice, and there's no increase in that. Again, I think that we're looking at, the same, 218,901.83. It is funny that, if you remember, for you people that have been around for as long, when I did my 10-year study, we always came in around that 150, and that's these, hopefully this year, and I just jinxed myself, if we stay with where we are, and last year I think we were 139,000. So that's just going to prove that maybe someday, if the funds are there, we could increase it to that, out of the expense line in overtime, split it.
I think what Jim is referring to is, years ago, there was definitely a pattern that the snow and ice budget was, just habitually or regularly underestimated, under appropriated. And so there looked like there was money available for the FinCom and the town to vote to increase that budget. I think we did it by 75,000, or maybe it was
Yes.
only
Yep.
50,000.
No, I think it was
75,000. So we're closer to not having a deficit, but at the same time, you never know how many ice events. I mean, that's probably what drives,
Good.
big storms, but the ice events eat up material and eat up labor just as much, and they happen more often, so.
I mean, I could report this year, we went from, 2 years ago, we had 24 contracted trucks. This year, we have 4. So we're doing everything that, we get a lot of compliments about what's being done and stuff like that. So that's all being done with 13 full-time employees, and we have one senior that comes back and plows with our equipment. I think that's pretty, I think it just shows what a great job that the guys that work for the DPW do. I sit in here in the office, so I don't go out and drive a truck. And, even this year here alone, that included in all that, the sidewalks being cleared at the police station, fire station. Fire station, they do it all their own. The fire guys, I swear to God, if I asked the chief to put a plow in all the fire trucks, I think and those guys would go out and do it, because they're that helpful to any way that they can be. But now we do out of the snow and ice budget, we clear the sidewalks at the police station, the library, and town hall, and that's all in that budgetary item that you saw today, which is, because we did not have a staff person that works at the town hall. What's next?
Nice job.
Yeah, street lighting. Street lighting, it's staying the same, I think, with, the reduction. Bob Weiss, we replaced, I think if somebody drives down 109, we can see that all the bulbs are all the same color, finally. That used to bother me more than probably anybody else because of my OCD-ness, but if people, I guess there's a good opportunity, if anybody's listening or watching, people see like there's 4 or 5 of them knocked down, well, we're chasing the insurance companies that people knocked them over. And it's, it's not easy, but it takes time. And for us to replace one of those lights, it's almost $9,000. And for us to fund replacing that and wait for the insurance company, we can't do it. Because there's 4 of them that we're waiting right now that are going through insurance claims. Not our insurance claim, there was one, from the town that we never knew who hit it, but there's 3 others that we're going after the person who hit it, fighting them with their insurance.
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious what's the success rate over the last few years regarding this? I mean, they're fallen several every year.
Yeah, almost 100%, almost 100. We
So that just goes into the general fund?
So, no, if the insurance company, we wait until, and they pay directly to Bartlett Insurance, it's like a
Oh, okay.
mediocre, person that, somewhere that comes in between and repairs them for us. So we don't do any of it.
Okay, good.
The transfer station, I think, is next. And this is another town meeting vote. If we look at, very impressed with this. If you look at, again, the Form 3, if you have that, I don't.
It's in here, this way
It's
this is
in there.
organized.
But
They're hard to
I can
find.
just explain.
Here it is.
This one's easy. A town meeting approved, this was another one, if you look at FY '21, there was .40. That's the only salary that came out of the general fund that paid for that person to operate the transfer station. And through our discussions with Paradigm and their, they did recommend that this should be a full-time general fund position. And in July 1st of FY '22, you can see that that was it was allocated. The funds do come from the general fund to pay for that full-time employee. So when we say there was one person last year, it was one and almost 1.5, that came from out of water and sewer, because this person was paid 40% and then 30% out of water and 30% out of sewer. Why it was that way, that's just the way it was. So that was corrected also in FY '22,
Okay.
which was good.
Does that mean the hours would increase?
So we did increase.
People can hear you, Jim.
We did do that. When that person went full-time, we opened it all day on Wednesday. So it's open all day Wednesday and all day Saturday now. And it's only one person. Even in keeping it open even during COVID and all that, that person needs those other days to pull the trucks, because we do that ourselves. We used to lease that out. We used to have, Norfolk used to pull all our containers. Now we have our own truck, and we pull out all the containers ourselves, so we don't have to pay for that.
To empty them.
To empty them, right. So it takes, that person, he works Tuesday through Saturday, so Tuesday he comes in, he empties from Saturday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, he cleans up and empties from Wednesday. But we are open 2 full days, and with that, I mean, with all the new people moving into Millis, where they came from before, a lot of them are used to having a transfer station, and they're buying, to this day, we still selling to new residents,
Good.
are coming in and purchasing the stickers.
There's been talk over the years to privatize.
This, price-wise, I don't care what anybody says, this
Yeah.
is the best deal in town. For dollar, it's the best thing in Millis. You can't, I don't care what you pay for your trash pickup or anything else, you can't beat the transfer station. Well, the cemetery's better than that, too, but that's another issue. So again, when we get to the budget, I did ask for increases again. These are, so I did put that on the Form 6, just like I did with the budget. I highlighted them and put them out there. And that's why I was confused, because I had the tree, I don't have mine there, too.
So why is recycling going up 40%?
Because we don't separate our recyclables, and for the first time, when China didn't want our paper and cardboard any longer, we were actually paying for the first time for paper and cardboard to dispose of it. Where we used to, the way the containers were packed so methodically, the paper was on one side, cardboard was another. When we used to bring it there, we used to get top dollar for it, but then it was just, and that used to pay for the recyclables, meaning the plastic. We have a container that you just dump in all your plastics, glass bottles. They're not separated by colors or anything like that. To get money back on that, you have to do that. You have to separate everything, and we don't have the staff or the, actually the volunteers. I mean, a lot of places have volunteers to do it, and we don't have the facilities to do for a separation like that. So we are paying, but in the last couple of months, the paper commodity in cardboard has gone back up again. So we are starting to see, whether it be a couple of $100s a month, and it's offsetting the cost of the recyclables. And then in the recyclables, we recycle carpet, all that stuff, furniture. And although we charge a $21 cost for it, sometimes it does exceed, it goes up because of the tonnage for it. So there is an increase in it. And again, there's no increase in the salaries because that's being negotiated.
What's the time frame for the negotiation?
They haven't even started yet, I don't think, right? They expire on June 1st.
Okay. So the answer from the crowd was not prior to town meeting.
Because it expires on June 30th anyway, so, you know, it's not.
Mr. Underhill?
Just one question.
Yes.
How much of these costs for the transfer stations are actually offset by the sale of the stickers?
I don't
Just
have that
ballpark.
printout here.
Okay.
It's almost, the revenue that comes in pays for that line item budget.
Okay.
Some years it exceeds it because when we sell the stickers in June. I know that's the only way I can answer the question. So we sell the stickers in June. Sometimes there's 5 weeks that we can sell them, there's only 4 weeks. And sometimes it goes on one fiscal year's budget or it goes on the next year. But it's pretty much a wash.
Okay,
Is that correct? Yes, it's,
great.
if not, would go up and again, the rates have held steady there for, I'd say for the past 5, 6, 7 years.
Thank you.
I think, okay, next, I think I gave you handouts for the, if we want to start with the water budget. And that's part of it. In a lot of these, how can I explain it? We're still, these are all work in progress budgets, because we're actually looking at many different things. We went to the capital planning committee, and there was a couple of capital items that we had requested, and it was felt better to add them into the budget themselves. And I'll point them out to when we get there. So if you look at the handout, that's this one that I gave tonight. I know on the budget, everything else stays the same, but I think the most discussion is on this anyway.
So
Okay,
for the,
handout?
for the committee, it's from the handout, and it's the
Who you want to
second
sign?
page, I think, of the handout.
Thank you.
So the salary lines pretty much stays the same, other than, step increases. Actually, it had lowered because a long-time employee had left. So we only are asking for the step one for the new employee. So that's why that's lower than what it was last year on the salary line. Service engineering. Why is there such a large increase? If we can just briefly talk about that. When we look at projects that a lot of grants that Mr. Weiss and myself go out and ask for, and we receive them, a lot of them are matching type grants, and a lot of them ask for engineering services, and they need to be split. And in the last couple of years, we've been, splitting between water, sewer, and stormwater because they're related to that type of grant application. And if you can look at FY '21, we exceeded $66,320, $66,329, and we only are allocated $30,000. So for us to keep things moving in engineering costs for us, even in the department, to have somebody come in and look at a design for a water main or anything like that has gone up. So that's why that's an increase of $50,000. I think that was testing water. I apologize. That's why
Okay.
I should wear my right glasses to read this. The $80,000, so whatever I just said that's the engineering from 30 to 50. That's why we're asking for a $20,000 increase.
Okay.
The testing water is PFAS testing. We still are in the midst of testing for PFAS through all our wells. And they're getting ready for a second round in 2023 of a new round of different type of testing of PFAS that will be coming out of the DEP. And that's just, so that's why the increase for testing. That was never included in the, in that $30,000 testing. PFAS was never allocated in there, so that's why we're looking for the increase in that.
And that'll never go away, right?
The testing won't, and even when we put the new well online, we're gonna have to start testing all our wells for lead and copper. So we test for lead and copper every 3 years. We're gonna have to test every month for it. Because the type of system that we have, if we have a lot of lead pipes in our system, it could activate them and bring more lead out. So we have to test to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And that was for 3 years? We'll have to test monthly, is that what you said?
No, forever,
Forever?
yeah.
Okay.
Jim, I'm sorry, but for the comprehension impaired, which is me,
No, it's the way I should have explained it, probably better. Go ahead.
thanks. The increase for the services engineering, I heard you say that that grant used to be split between the various enterprises. Please explain just
Sure.
briefly again why it's going up 20,000.
Sure, so the last grant that we just received, it was a flood mitigation type grant that Mr. Weiss and myself applied for and received it. There is in-kind work that him, myself, and the staff do, but there's also a monetary amount that has to be split, that we have to put up for a matching type grant.
So if you apply for a $50,000 grant, the town has
We
to
have to say
pony up
$10,000.
$50,000.
No, let's say 20,000, 10, 15,000.
Okay.
And for that to work, we have to prove that there is actually, that this is benefiting the water and the stormwater. That's where those two grants are. And the increase also is for us to have somebody come in and help us, assist us with engineering costs, because we don't have an engineer on staff. Whether that be reviewing plans for new water mains or new developments, all that gets outsourced.
So were those grant applications associated with specific initiatives or projects, and can you just quickly synopsize
Sure.
those?
Yeah, so the last one, it is flood mitigation, and what it did is it took,
Birch Street?
is Birch Street on there? I don't know.
Merchant Village.
Birch Village, yeah, well, we're gonna talk about Birch Village.
Okay.
Because we actually have good news about that. When we get to stormwater. This is, we're looking at culverts right now. And there was part of it also was, at the beginning, part of it was to inventory our GIS system, to locate, so our GIS system, we have it built. And now we actually, they're putting new layers on top of the GIS system to accept the storm drainage system. That's never been done. And now it's being done through this type of project.
Okay.
And that's why we split it across water, sewer, and stormwater
Okay.
in that last project. And I guess we can go down to, the rest are just, minimal increases. The water LTD principles, I talked to the treasurer collector today. There could be a large adjustment in them, depending on how she's gonna borrow funding for the new PFAS plant. We think this could be lowered for this fiscal year, but she's just, she's waiting for the right time to do it, and she thinks it's getting close to, that she's gonna have to go out and borrow because of, and maybe bond it before rates really go through the roof. But those are preliminary estimates. When you see water LTD principal and water interests and stuff like that, it has for work paying for loans that we have from previous jobs, and the PFAS for this little bit is included in that. Special projects, I think you see that, we just added that, and that comes from, there was 2 capital projects that I asked for this year. One was for unidirectional flushing program. A unidirectional flushing program is, in brief, we're actually asking, when we go out and flush hydrants, that's all it is, it's flushing hydrants, but we're actually gonna make it that we want it to do, we want to direct the water to come from where and where for it to exit. Right now, what we do is we go out, we turn a hydrant on, and then we go down to the next hydrant and turn that on. And that's really not doing, although it's helping, but and it satisfies our obligation, it's not really cleaning the water mains. So what we're gonna do is, we had a project that was done in 2015. It was designed, and right at the end of that, we had broken away from the engineering firm that designed it for us. And then we had issues with the water tank. Then we had, part of that project was that we had to have valves placed. So it was a monetary thing that we chose, that we weren't ready to actually institute this yet. And we feel that it's the right time to do it. And that cost was $44,000
Of that 200,000?
out of that 200,000. The rest comes from, since I went to the capital planning committee and we got this budget done, we received another grant from the DEP. And our cost to that is $139,000 for lead and copper exploration. So now we have to do is, again, the DEP, an unfunded mandate is that they want us to go out and locate every lead copper lead line in the town. We have a pretty good idea where the services are, but now that you have to formulate a program of how you're gonna test it, how you're gonna do everything. So that's just, and that's a cost of $139,000.
And, Mr. Chair, what happens with that information?
So when we get that information, as part of our testing right now, we test every 3 years for lead and copper. And that's going to increase, when we find out how many more that we actually have, that may increase us to 40 tests a year. Now we do 20. That could increase us to 40 tests a year, every 3 years. The PFAS testing that I said about the lead and copper, that's something totally different than this program. They're two
The
separate.
next program.
The next
Sorry,
one.
Mr. Chair.
It's,
Well, I think it brings up a good issue is, you know, you can test all you want, but if you're not doing anything about it, if you're not going to locate it and replace it, why are you testing?
correct. And there's incentives that'll help us. I mean, if we find that your house has a lead line going into it, there could be funds there that, through the state, that we could apply for you and get you the money to replace them.
I'm going to go back real quick, if I can, to the unidirectional flushing.
Yes.
You know, the industry standard has always been just, as you described, flush hydrants, you
Yep.
know, move to one, move to the other. What is the actual benefit that the extra resources will get you beyond?
Yep. It's going to clean the line out. It's going to clean out that section, other than you just go and, like I said, long-term, it's going to clean out a section much better. Because there's tuberculi and there's rust in every pipe that, you could put it in today, and within a month, it's going to be back. There's going to be rust in that, in that pipe, because it's steel pipes, and particles get in there, and you're flushing out the different little particles and rust out of that line. So, like I said, we're going to let's take a section of Main Street. It goes from end to end. We'll shut down, let's say at Pleasant Street, we'll allow the water from Pleasant Street to enter into two different sections and shut down gates at each end, depending on how long they go, and we'll flush it out of those two hydrants. The water, am I trying to? Are you getting what I'm
You don't
saying?
have to describe it for me technically. What I guess my question is along
Is
the
it
lines of,
bigger benefit?
is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, absolutely.
Point two.
What difference does it make to a water user in Millis that you used the old way of doing it versus unidirectional flushing?
Yeah,
What does the $44,000 get you at the tap?
The New England Water Works and they feel that this is a unidirectional type flushing is a much better.
Of course they do,
safer-
because
yeah.
their members are
Yeah.
the ones doing the work. It's
Yep.
like firefighting equipment, there's a new requirement for firefighting every year because the firefighter, and I love firefighters. Nobody supports the fire department better than I think I do, but I also recognize that, the codes are written, they generate new requirements as we just discussed, the unfunded mandates
Yep.
to replace things, fire alarm panels. There's a reason that fire alarm panels go, proprietary and obsolete within so many years is because it generates revenue. It's, so,
Yep.
I just want to, I want to be convinced that the 44,000 is money well spent, and
I think the only way I can try to convince you on that is it is more a standard procedure in other, municipalities in water systems than not any longer.
Okay.
Because it's been proven that the quality of water gets much better when you do this type of flushing. Because when you, again, the way we do it, and as I said, it is acceptable, you're creating probably more of a problem because you're not cleaning that section out. You may clean out, after a fire, everybody gets rusty water. When a hydrant's open, everybody gets rusty water. That sediment still is in the bottom of the pipe, once it all settles down. This will, when you shut a valve here and you shut a valve here, you force whatever's in that main to come out of that hydrant.
okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Hold on one second.
No, it's good.
You may.
and we may want to also check with Chief Barrett, because I know this isn't standard best practice for the industry, and it is planned to be in the next revision of NFPA 291, which is the fire hydrant code, that will be coming out in the next few years. So this would put us ahead of the game.
Okay.
Because once it becomes code, the equipment usually jumps about 30 to 40%
Thank
in
you.
cost.
Joyce?
I guess my question, from what I'm understanding, it's a clean flush rather than going from, it's, to me, the way you're explaining, and maybe I'm not understanding it, but say these are the hydrants.
Yep.
So it's going from, the old way is opening this one to this one, then this one to this one, and there's not a continual flow. Whereas the proposal is, it's more like a continual
So we'll
flushing.
take, yes.
So that it would close off, say, this one to this area, clean everything out, and then
Move on to the next one.
move on to the next.
Move
So
on
it's
to
a
the next.
cleaner clean,
Yes, yes.
cleaner flushing.
Yep.
How will it affect people's home water?
Well, again, because whatever
I
is flushed
mean-
out of the hydrant, when you turn the tap on, it's the same thing. And we're hoping that you'll get a better quality of water coming out of your spigot.
Okay.
And your showers and your tubs and toilets.
So it won't be as dirty for as long?
Mm-hmm.
It'll still be dirty?
We're hoping not.
Okay.
So then, Mr. Chair, is this a one-time fee,
Yes.
or is this going to be
No,
annual?
so, yeah, I guess that's how it's gonna have to be explained. This $200,000 won't be in, if there's no projects, it'll be a zero for next year. Correct? It will be, so if there's no, what we're turning, whatever we turn into, what we think is a capital item for the water, sewer, and stormwater, because it's in all three of them. You're gonna see that it's in all three of them. It's, because it's a mandated type project, you won't see it the next year. So I'm not gonna ask for you won't see this line item with 200,000 in there in FY '24, no.
When would we see it?
You won't, because it's
Ever
gonna be
again.
paid for. Well, if there's another project that we wanna do, I don't know what.
What kind of
I guess,
project?
I guess I look for clarity. I don't understand, and this is kind of, I think the capital planning committee, which I'm on, and which we met last night, I think we determined that this is not a capital item, and will push, and maybe Mike can refresh my memory. So this will likely come back to an operating budget. And I think it was in there as a service, and I think it further, back to the original discussion that we had, that if it's a service, and if it's worthwhile doing, you would do as part of your regular, your operating procedures. And so it should be in there every year, not as a capital item.
So, but I wouldn't need that $44,000 for that engineering services again. I'm asking for.
Is it a study to how to do it versus the actual doing
It's actually
it?
gonna come in and train the staff.
okay.
To
So it's
finally get this.
one-time.
It's a one-time.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So what's the
Okay.
200,000?
So
That's a
there's-
separate
there's two
project.
separate projects.
Gotcha.
So the $139,000 for again, that's an engineering type contract that needs to be signed for that amount.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really touching upon more the capital end of this, because as you know, the capital committee has had extensive conversations about which types of projects are truly capital and which are more operational. And as you know, we've had these conversations for at least 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And I think with water and sewer and stormwater utilities, there becomes a blurred line between what capital project is and what is a periodic maintenance or required maintenance. Sometimes these things are required to be done every couple of years, maybe not this particular one, but there are projects within water and sewer that have to be done. They're really a maintenance, but they might not have to be done every year. So I think in the spirit of the discussion of the capital committee, those things really would fall within the operating budget of the utility and not a capital item. If the utility was going out and was putting in a new line that costs $2 million, that's a capital item. But if you're taking action to maintain your current structures, even if it's a large amount and it only has to be done periodically, maybe not every year, I would still classify that as an operating maintenance cost, even though it might be an individual large cost per year. So I would support the capital committee's approach in that something like this really should be within the operating budget.
I understand and agree with what you say, and I also think that there's other mechanisms to fund something like this besides a capital item, or an operating budget. The town does have, for lack of a better word or term, free cash or discretionary money that they could allocate every other year for something like this, that the select board can, add to a budget, as you recommend and as they deem appropriate. So.
And I agree, that's certainly an option. So I wouldn't preclude that, but I think these types of projects, you probably do have to look at them on a case-by-case basis and make a determination whether what's more appropriate on this. And certainly, being an enterprise adds another wrinkle to the
Sure.
whole discussion.
Sure.
So,
And in this case, I think really, why it's taken us so long to get to this point is just, it's a study. It's not it's training, and it's let us figure out, determine what's the best way to do unidirectional flushing for the town and have a program versus, it's not a, hey, we're gonna do this every year and it costs $44,000 to do it. That's my fault, so, thank you. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So, just trying to summarize here. So, by doing this, it'll be a cleaner flush with the system. And also, would that cleaner flush last a longer
Yes.
period of time?
Definitely.
Okay. And do we know what that number is, or does it?
I don't, but I can say, and most of you must know, I mean, you see the truck out in front of your house,
Yeah.
8, 9 o'clock, one year to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
That will cut down, drastically. It may
Okay.
take a little longer to get to that point.
Yeah.
But once that's done, it'll last longer, much longer than,
Okay.
The system.
So
Yeah.
then it'll
And
be
then-
more cost-effective.
correct. And it costs, because every time you open that hydrant, you're paying for the chemicals that treat the
Right.
water is being blown out into the,
Right.
and killing the fish down
And
in
then
the Charles
from-
River.
And then from a training standpoint, the 44K now is to train it and to make the conversion
And it's gonna,
over.
yes,
And then would there be subsequent training periods in the future? Like
No, because
5
once-
years out or 3 years
we
out?
we
or-
won't need it because the staff will be trained on it and they'll train the staff, coming after them.
Okay.
And this, what the big thing is, it's also, this 44,000 is gonna help us add it to our work order system. So there'll be, when they go out at night, instead of writing it down like, oh, we're pumping out a guesstimate of how many gallons coming out, there's gonna be a mechanism that they can measure
Gotcha.
how much water's coming out, and it was done on such, and there'll be a record.
Oh,
We did
wow.
this section as part of the work order system.
Perfect, thank you.
We beat you up on that one.
Nope. That's
We
easy.
beat ourselves up
This
on
is
that
an
one.
easy one.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
All you
you.
had to do is say it was one time. And it's like, I'm okay with it now.
So this is not the actual flushing, this is training and being able
This is
to
training,
do it within your department.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
so that's 40.
And again, I think the sewer, the water, other forms, they are what they are. We have to.
So that's 44,000 of the 200.
Correct. The other funds are to assist us with the design of the, this is going to be mandated, this is another state mandated, DEP mandate that we come up with this lead and copper program. We may be a year ahead of it. It could be pushed off till the following year, but it's got to be done. It has to be done. We have to come up with a program
So
for
that's
this
a
lead
lead
and
and
copper
copper study.
study that will give us engineering. Again, it'll come and say that your house has lead in it, you know, and we may have to start testing that. But if there's a cluster of homes that have lead, one, two, three of those houses in that cluster will have to be tested.
So that'll identify the sources
Correct.
of lead.
Correct.
And there is lead in this town?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. You'd be kind of surprised at where the biggest cluster is, but
Oh, now, don't tease us.
it's in the general, it's in a fairly new development. It's off of, there's a lot up on, where the water tank is off, on Walnut Street. The Walnut Street tank, there's a lot up there. I mean, anything that was probably built before, say what, the 40s, you know, something around there.
And that
Probably.
water tank
Yeah,
dates
yeah.
way back, both
Yep,
of them do.
Both of them do, yeah.
So that's there could be lead
In
in
the
the
homes.
distribution.
In the homes. We don't have any lead
In the tanks.
pipes or anything.
You
in
don't, the town
street.
does not?
No.
Okay,
no.
so once it
mostly
gets off
services.
private property,
Yep, yep. And as we replace, you know, Kathy, I'm sorry, I might have misspoke there. So if a developer put a service going from the main to the house, we own that lead service up to the curb stop.
okay.
And then the homeowner takes over after that.
Yeah, so
Then
there
they will
might
have to be responsible to replace it. We'll replace up to the curb stop, and usually we replace water mains, that's what we do. Like what we did Dover Road, we replaced all the services going from the water main to the curb stop, and then unfortunately, the homeowner has to take care of the rest.
And there was lead there?
I don't know about up there, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I was gonna
Joyce?
say- I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. But those houses on Walnut Street aren't dated back to 1940.
Some of them, well, it's, depends on what the developer might have used during that time.
But those houses were built in 1960, the
Yeah,
1960s.
I said some, that's why.
Oh,
it's,
okay.
So, Mr.
Okay,
McKay,
got it. Took me,
that gets us to 183K. Is this a budgetary estimate, the 200,000?
Yes.
Is it a rough
It's a
number?
roundup.
It's a roundup, absolutely, that's all it was.
Thank you.
Big number. Thank you.
200 seems to be the roundup
The
number
magic, the
lately.
magic number.
Wow.
boy, it took me a little while to get that.
Sewer?
Sewer, so we get into the, just increases in
Okay.
wages. There's a decrease because that person was paid 50/50 out of water and sewer funds, and that's why it went down. Service engineering, almost the exact same reason. I might have got a little robust with the $45,000, so that's up to
Yeah.
Mike to maybe knock that down, but.
That'd be nice.
How about supplies and expenses?
Sorry.
Supplies and expenses.
Can't be that many more paper clips needed.
No, see, what we're gonna try to do, now that we have an office manager, we're gonna take this, and if you remember I think the fire chief consolidated a lot of his, these things of how they're gonna be allocated and what gets paid out of it. So what we take out of supplies and expenses, that doesn't mean it's necessary, that could be a pump, it could be something needed in the sewer station.
Okay.
So that's why it's,
Including sewer station, it should say.
it could,
Maybe,
yep,
okay.
yep.
Then you got a new line for stormwater.
Well, that, we have to pay, both of them, we all have to pay, just like anybody else. The buildings that the sewer stations are on, that has to pay into the stormwater.
The town
Fund.
pays its
Pays its own stormwater.
MS4
But
bill.
that wasn't in the budget last year.
Well,
That's why I'm confused.
right, and with the new buildings at the new facility, it's a shared cost for the facilities, the new buildings that were built down at 7 Water Street, so that they did increase more.
So is general fund paying through this, Mr. Chair?
And that's paid through, yes,
Okay.
that's, there was an increase in that. If you, when you want to look back at that, there was definitely an increase.
Is it on this page you gave us?
No, it'd be on the, in the book,
Okay,
in the general, if you want to look back.
okay, thanks.
The good news here, if you go down to the Charles River, there was a decrease, and the increase for the O and M and the assessment costs haven't gone up that much this year, which is good for us. I mean, that's good for ratepayers.
So that, for general knowledge, that CRPCD is the Charles River Pollution Control District. So that's basically our fee to pump in to, you know,
Sewage. Yep.
sewage treatment.
And the interest is, that went down. And special projects here, that's 140, that's our next phase of our II study. I think you've all been around knowing long enough what II is, infiltration and inflow.
This is an updated version.
So we went out in Canberra to, and smoke tested 4 different sections of town last year. Now we need to go in and we're gonna start looking at sub pumps in basements. We're actually gonna not be knocking on doors, because some of them are illegal. I mean, you can't, if you have a sump pump in your basement, you can't put it in the drain, because we're paying for that water to get, you know, you can pump it out the window, but you can't put it in the drain. And we have a way to test that we can actually find out. We have a good idea where, you know, where most of them are. And we
Mr.
will-
Chair, I'm wondering if the director knows approximately how many, would
I
you
don't.
say? Because some have that legally.
Not into drains, you can't, it's the Board of Health and the DPW, you cannot take a sump pump and actually put it into, like where your kitchen, where your
Oh, okay.
washing machine goes, because you're paying, we pay for that
But
to
some
get
people
treated.
are.
They are, and that's what we're gonna find out and go in
Great.
and tell them to take it out.
I vote for that.
Go ahead, John.
Yep.
I think I heard you say this is the second phase.
Well, this is a multiple phase. When they say this has been almost
Every
9,
year.
this is maybe the 10th phase of
Okay.
our permit for our discharge.
But
And it'll
why are
be
My question then is, why are we seeing 140,000 in the budget for next year, and we've never seen it in the past?
Because that's another one of those that I always put it through as a capital line item, and I was told that it should be in the budget because it's a reoccurring
Okay,
cost. And
Okay.
it can be allocated through it is the first time you've seen it. That's why it's in red on the other side, too.
That's the II study.
Correct.
okay.
And lastly, on the transfer to the general fund on all of them, I think you see that they're all highlighted in red. We don't know what those final costs for the 3 funds are yet. That'll be finalized, I think, when everybody's budgets are done, because then the percentages for each one of the different departments that get funds from the general, the enterprise funds will be finalized. So they can't finalize that yet until.
And I think this ties us back to our original kind of question. One of our early questions was indirect costs, right?
Yep.
But-
So,
So the
Mr. Chair, this is a fluid number then? This could
This is.
change?
This
Okay.
will change.
Oh, will, okay.
And that's the same, I should have said that at the water also. And it's no different than the stormwater will be the same.
And how do these compare with the revenue that comes in?
Well, that number is part of what we need to budget, and whether it may call for an increase. So you know what I'm saying, this line, this $247,258,
Right?
that's part of what is, it's in the budget. And then when we do a rate increase, or we have a rate study done, if that exceeds the amount of what is being generated coming back, and there may be a need to increase
Yeah.
the services.
My question is, how much revenue does the enterprise fund generate?
I would have.
Does it cover this?
It does, right now it does, of course it does. Yeah.
Okay.
We can get that number, I mean.
Carol might know. Ms. Johnson might know.
Carol will, I'm sure, be presenting kind of the overall
Because
picture,
it has to balance it.
the
Yeah.
budget to us, once we get through the department requests.
Yeah, so these are the expenses, we don't know.
Correct.
From this.
Revenue coming
But
in.
the revenue should cover all of
Yep,
this.
and Carol's been invited. She's on deck for a couple weeks
Thank
from
you.
now. She can't wait.
Yeah. So, before we get into the, quickly, the stormwater,
Can I make
Yes,
one
you
more?
may. Go ahead.
sorry,
And unless I'm wrong, Jim,
I'm listening.
on the sewer
Yep.
division,
Yep.
I believe the total you have on the bottom is just total of expenses, not total of
It's-
personnel and
It is.
expenses.
If it's not correct, there must have been, I might have deleted something off of it, but it's supposed to be. So if you
Okay.
add if you're correct, there's a
Yeah,
line
okay.
item, something
I
missing
just
there.
wanted to,
You know what you're missing?
yeah.
See, that's,
The
I
transfer.
put page breaks in this morning,
Yeah,
and that's,
yeah,
we're
so,
missing
okay.
the total.
I guess.
So you're looking at, what?
Right, that's,
Almost 1.7
just to clarify.
Six.
million. Yeah. I'll correct that and put that back in and send it out to the committee.
No, no,
Yep, nope. Stormwater, everybody asks, what do you do with stormwater? What happens with stormwater? And I always make the engineering firm, I'm sure we're paying them to do it, but the budget narrative, please read it. I would ask everybody, please read it. There's, the thing that I have to tell everybody is we're in compliance, and whether we can discuss or argue about the amount of cost for stormwater or whatever, we're one of the very few surrounding communities that are in compliance with everything with stormwater. So please read it. I think it's like 4 or 5 pages long. And it'll give you a narrative of, again, what was accomplished last year and what we actually are looking for in the FY '23 budget for the fees. So the Form 3 for that is 2.9 employees. That's been the same since we instituted in FY '20. That hasn't changed. And it gives you all the breakdown. It's the Form
Yep.
6. Again, when I did the Form 6, I budget request above, I added, you'll see what's in there. If you read that, it's the increases, and it's the same
that's
as
fine,
from what was done before.
no problem.
Service engineering, as much as, I looked at that today, I mean, when I'm done with Mike, that's probably gonna go back down, because we actually think we can lower that cost next year, because we think we've accomplished more, with the office manager, we think we can probably lower that below the $74,000. You gotta remember, we do these in January, so,
We're ready to reduce it now if you are.
That's
If you just want us to scratch through that.
we'll do that and come back to you.
We welcome that. That's the
Yes.
only place we'll see it
Yep.
in your budgets.
Yep. And again,
Poor guy's being put on the hot seat right now.
He's used to it. He's used to it.
I maybe on this one, I didn't, because I haven't updated it, we did not add the special project line item in this, but there's nothing in there right now. I mean,
Will it
well,
stay
again,
that way?
no, I don't think so, because again, we received a grant that funds are gonna have to be distributed. We receive these, whenever they come out and say, you got it, I mean, that's when we find out about it. We didn't find out about 3 of these grants until late, like a week or 2 ago. And we're still reviewing to see if it's worth our while to actually do it. And it may not be, we may not put it in there, but, we are reviewing it.
Okay.
And that could be added into that.
I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox, or at least just make the recommendation to the committee that we do exactly what Mr. McKay said, and that's read the narrative, because this portion of the budget is one of the most controversial. And I think, I think for good reason, personally. And so when there's questions about, why is the town collecting these fees? It's not because anybody really wants to, it's because we have to. It's a mandated program, and, Jim just said that we're compliant. Well, it doesn't really make me sleep any better at night that we're compliant, but we are required. I mean, I guess if the town was getting, fines from the DEP or EPA for a very controversial program, maybe it'd be a different story, but we're not, and we're compliant, and ultimately, I think that's a good thing. But anyway, it is important for us to be able, as the Finance Committee, to be able to articulate why these funds are being collected, and, you know, eventually one of us is gonna have to sit before town meeting and answer the music and have a discussion to the voters to be able to compel them that this is, and ultimately, they are must-pay bills. But, you know, the town could vote no on this budget item. I doubt that they would do that. We haven't done it yet, and that's why we have a compliant program. It is why we've made improvements, like Birch Street, or we're about to, I'm waiting for the good news. But that is how we've been able to improve that portion of the system, the culverts, and, you know, I guess as a neighbor and a tributary to the Charles River, it's, you know, it's important that we do that, so.
So briefly, as an explanation of Birch and Village Street, and I think that was the first thing that I proposed to everybody from the stormwater management. Through the final design that was done this past summer, when we went out there and we investigated even further, we wanted to put Caltech systems in the middle of the street. I think that's how I explained it, that was going to be done. Well, with the idea of putting them in the middle of the street, the gas main was mismarked. The gas company mismarked where the actual gas main was. So the Caltech systems in the middle of the street aren't going to work. So we went back and we did some more investigation, and through exploration of the leaching basin that right at the corner, I think for you, I think there's some of us who drive down there every day, we've noticed in the last I'd say in the last year, there hasn't been anywhere near as flooding. Only time when there's flooding is now when the leaves are on there. We've opened up and we expanded the leaching basin, and we believe that that's going to be the source of what we're going to do, which is going to be much cheaper than the $711,000. So we have not borrowed any of that money, so that's why you don't see any short, long-term debt on that project. So we are still using the funds that were in the original engineering study that will give us a better idea of moving forward with that project, which will not call for the exploration of 4 Caltech systems in the middle of the street, which is good news.
Good.
So that's stormwater. And ending, so you can all get out of here. Capital item projects. So now we're only down to 2 because we just talked about a couple of them. I think all I have is a 2000, I think you have that, or we're just going to discuss it. We have I am requesting a 2022 Chevrolet Silverado.
So this is back in your main DPW budget section.
Oh, it was in that. Yes, I didn't make the books. Yeah.
Would have been nice if this had been better.
Yep.
So again, this is to replace a 2012, I think it's a 2011, but I did type a 12, but we purchased it in 2011. Silverado pickup truck. It's a mainline truck. We use it every single day. The cost of that is $130,000, no, it has 130,345 miles. The cost of it is $54,416, and that will be split through all 4 departments, because it is used by everyone. It has a plow route. We use it. The reason why we're going to buy a double cab, we feel that we can, right now when we have summer help kids and summer staff, there's 2 or 3 different trucks because there's only so much room these people can fit in. But if we have a 2-seater, we'll be able to put and deliver the whole crew at one site and with the trailer. It'll have a hitch. It'll pick up, they'll take the trailer. During the winter, it does have again, it's a smaller type truck, so we put it on a different, smaller area to plow roads. It's not out in the major roads, but it does take, it has a major plow route in Millis. The problems with the truck that we have now is it was due to be replaced 2 years ago, because these trucks were, when we do the capital items, they're supposed to be replaced every 10 years. We are starting to really sink a lot of money into this vehicle. The floorboards on the driver's side let go at the beginning of the winter, but it was too late to ask for something, so the guys welded the floor, a steel plate under, to keep it going for the winter.
And they did a good job at that.
They did.
They got
did.
another winter out of it.
And instead of it just parked on the
Right.
side of the road. They most definitely did. It's out there plowing in every snowstorm. This will be traded in, we finally got somebody to come in and look at all of our surplus materials. The reason why I didn't ask for this in November, I knew I wasn't gonna get it. Because like, when you heard the stories about the police cruisers and the fire trucks, they're just not there. It's the same thing with these. Because when you buy off the state bid list, they only create so many of these vehicles to be sold to, it's not just like going to the Ford dealer and saying, I'll take that truck there. They put in, this truck is the same truck that will be sold to Medfield, Medway, or whoever, and it has the same options. They come up with a kind of a nice package, and they put it together, and it's sold through municipalities, so we don't have to go out to bid and get 3 prices for them. It's the simplest way to do it. So the cost for each would be $13,604 would be for the 3. And I know these both are a lot of discussions, and I'm sure the chair will get into his discussion part of it at the end of it. The next is a skid steer. What is a skid steer? A skid steer is a little excavator, not an excavator, a little Bobcat type truck, and this is exactly as a Bobcat. What do we need it for? We need it to plow sidewalks, and it's going to be a trackless one, so it's going to have like the tank tires on that we all see, that will be able to be used on off-roads, and it will be used year-round. We're not just buying this to, just to buy it and have it do sidewalks. We're going to use it, and we're going to use it, the department will use this, and it can be used in different areas where a rubber type skid steer could not get to. Just like the excavator that we bought a couple of years ago, that excavator, if we didn't have that, we saved, when we did all the work at the DPW, we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars without outsourcing that type of project, because we had the equipment in-house to do it. So can it be shared? I think again, let me finish and then we'll discuss that. That'll also be split 4 different ways, because it's going to be used by water, sewer, general, and stormwater, because if you replace a catch basin, that's stormwater. If you clear a culvert, that's stormwater. If you, it's tough to come up with saying now, it's like, why are you splitting it 4 different ways? Because the way that we're tracking everything, this type of equipment needs to be split, 4 different ways.
Mr. Chair? Oh, go ahead.
Go
No, you go first.
Does it make sense to split it up equally between the 4 departments, or do a different weight between the different departments? Like, are you gonna use it 40% in one area versus 30% in another area?
So how do I do that? I wish I could come up with a plan on how that could be done.
Yeah.
Again, today, we met with the Paradigm group, and they're actually coming up of how we're gonna split gas prices. And I think that could be the way that we move forward, it's not gonna be, just because the truck's assigned to the water department, or it's assigned to the sewer department, it's gonna be when the person using the vehicle is, whatever that allocation is, that's how the vehicle's gonna be split.
Gotcha.
Did I say that correct? Yep,
Should match the hours of the operator.
it should.
It doesn't operate itself.
Correct. But I don't have that yet, that information to do that yet. So maybe the next vehicle that we buy, we may have a better
Understanding, yeah.
proven way that it can be done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might ask,
You might.
there are, on 109 in front of the marijuana facility, there's sidewalks, and that goes straight, I believe, straight to Miller Center.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if it would be appropriate by whatever group makes that decision, that use marijuana funds equally. So instead of 25% on the big 4, it would be 20%, including marijuana, and the funds would drop from 13,174 to 10,550. I think a case could be made, Mr. Chair, and I don't know who makes the case, that marijuana funds would be approved to be used for something like this. Because there is a machine that's doing the
This is-
sidewalks
well,
there.
this is gonna be the machine that
This
will
will
do
be
it.
the do it.
Because that's the one we
Okay.
rent, the one we rent right now does that, because
Okay.
it's a larger
So,
sidewalk.
right, it is. It's a major sidewalk right
And-
through.
Believe me, the owner of that property, if it's not done in
Just throwing it out
between,
there,
we
Mr.
get it.
Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I appreciate anything that offers a creative way to fund something that isn't necessarily coming from the operating budget and is coming from, marijuana funds, which, again, are gonna dry up. So you're only talking about 5 years if you made that argument. But if it's snow removal that you're talking about, then you'd likely have to prorate the amount of sidewalk in front of Comcan. You know what I mean?
respectfully disagree on that,
Well,
that it would have to
it's-
go that
It's a
intense.
discussion that would likely have to be had so
Yeah.
that we could justify it. Again, I appreciate us thinking creatively to figure out how to reduce the costs to the other budget lines.
Thank you.
Jim, a
Yes.
question for you. We had extensive discussion, which I have a feeling that you've heard about last night at the
No, I didn't.
Capital Planning
I
Committee about the capital items that have been requested for snow removal amongst the DPW as well as the school, because the school is requesting, I think, 3 snow removal vehicles. And so we were looking at those from a consolidation or integration of requirements and resources perspective and what's most efficient. And that's not necessarily specific to my question, but how many of our sidewalks can fit a piece of equipment this wide? Which is what I'm pulling up here. I'm trying to find out how wide the thing is. Sometimes if this is a compact machine, then I understand it'll fit quite a bit. But some of these things are 7, 8 feet
No,
wide.
this machine will fit on any sidewalk that we own.
Good.
And that's why we bought that size.
Good.
That size machine.
Okay.
It was specifically, we actually have a skid steer that's too big to do sidewalks. We just use it for, major work on the roads and stuff like that. But this machine will fit on anything that the town owns.
Okay. Just for the committee's knowledge, the Capital Planning Committee, first off, the school is going to present their budget in 2 weeks on the 23rd. The Capital Planning Committee is going to send them a question for them to essentially further justify the equipment that they're asking for, and really try to make sure that almost like a usage study is done, or not necessarily studies, just some analysis has been done, and there's been some collaboration between the departments, so that if we don't need 2 pieces of equipment, which are pretty expensive, and we can possibly use one, I don't want that to happen as a result of our questioning it. I think it should happen now. There ought to be some collaboration between the departments, and I'm not saying that there isn't. I just want more of it. I want it to be presented, not because we're asking, 3 pieces of equipment from the school, plus what the town gets. That's a lot of equipment. It's a lot of capital outlay, so it's important that it happens.
I have to agree with everything you just stated. I think that, there has been talk about it, and probably more since the last time I went to your committee with different, with select board members and stuff like that. Can it be done? Can something like that be consolidated? Of course it can. We're not that big enough for it not to happen. We all know that. I think this committee meets with all different other boards for that same purpose, to consolidate stuff. And I see that, and I'm trying, it's tough when you watch stuff and you live in the town, and so I'll try to be cognizant of all that. But this has been talked about for since that committee was instituted 5, 6 years ago, of consolidating different things, and nothing's ever come out of it. You haven't consolidated, pretty much, other than financial stuff and stuff like that. Myself and John Engler we don't have the ability to do that. There are union issues. There's, if the DPW goes over and starts clearing their sidewalks, we're taking overtime away from and that's a separate union. Until it's negotiated through the select board and the school committee, that's where it has to end. That's where it has to start and where it could end by next winter. This could be done by next winter. But whoever takes it over, there's still a staffing issue. So that has to be built into it. It's not an equipment issue, because right now the town has enough equipment to do everything you just stated. We don't have the staff to do it, though.
Thank you.
That has to be done on time. But, so that's the cost of the skid steer. And again, that will be split through the 4 different departments.
Or maybe 5.
Any more questions or
Yeah, maybe
comments?
5.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely presented.
Yeah, last year I had projectors and, this is the first time we've all met in, 3 years, isn't it? 2, 3 years?
2,
Two.
year and a half, 2.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
In our book, there was also a capital request
yes.
for the electronic signboard.
Yes.
Are you deleting that?
No, no, I'm not.
Okay.
No, we talked about, I knew the skid steer would get us all going, so we're gonna do that. So the electronic signboard, I think if we all drive through different communities, we see these signs advising people what's going on through the town. Millis doesn't have one anymore. I think the one at the police had one, and I believe it's not working, or
Right.
it works one day and it doesn't. You know, the Lions Club was gonna put one out front at the town hall. I don't know where that process is. And this is the one that I thought maybe should go through the marijuana funding. But I guess, I don't know what can go through marijuana funding, or what can't, because you're notifying people of what could be anything. You could put anything you want on that sign, notifying people of that. You know, again, as I told the capital, this would be my 3rd wish of my presentation, but I think, and again, it's, people ask, why don't we have them? And I say, all I can do is ask.
It's, any chance you could get police or fire to share a little bit of this, or even the town administrator?
What, to share the cost of it?
Yeah, because it'd be used for
It would be used by
announcing
everybody.
elections.
Correct.
And
It'd be used
Even
for
school.
school, yep.
I
Pride
think, well,
days and,
I think it would be an asset. It gets very poor rating, the way it's presented, which is disappointing.
You may. Mr. Kaczynski.
And I would thank Mr. Stedman for his observation. Actually, that's quite correct. I think certainly Jim's taken the initiative to put forward this capital proposal for the signage, but I think, you know, just in the way our departments work together, it would be used when needed also by the police department, the fire department, recreation department, if there's a big event coming up. So even though
School
it would be, yes, if the
Yeah,
school's
right.
having, yeah, it could be used by any municipal or school department. So basically, Jim's taking the lead on this, but it's not restricted just to, and I think that's a great point, it's not restricted just to the DPW.
Right.
Like a sail.
If there's any way that-
Maybe some HCA funding.
That case could be more compelling, so it gets rated higher by
Right.
the capital planning
Right.
committee.
Chances
And I don't know how
are-
they work.
Chances are, it will be a DPW vehicle and a DPW employee that will drive it to a spot and set it up, but it doesn't mean it's only used for DPW-related messaging, so.
All said, doesn't
All
reduce
right.
the cost to the town,
And bottom line is,
right?
you know,
We still,
the
you can
funding
divide
comes
the
from the
pie
same
5
place.
ways, it's still a
That's
pie.
true.
Well, the
So-
marijuana isn't from the town.
No,
No,
on that,
no.
I understand what
Okay,
you're saying.
okay.
I'm just saying on the
four.
issue of the board,
It's 4
you
ways
can
with the
divide
town.
that 100 ways. It's still a
Right.
full pie that
It's
costs
still-
$19,000.
But
It
it
still
shows
costs
more
19,000, but it
consensus. Yes.
shows a broader use, and that is correct.
Ultimately, what we want to get away from is having 3 of them, where 2 of them sit in the back in a lot,
Yes.
don't get used. Why do we need 3 of them? Why don't we have 1 of them and rent or lease the other 2 as needed?
Right, and I think this one would get a lot of use if we did purchase it,
that's it,
so.
we don't have any right now.
Yeah, right,
Understand.
but if we did get this one would get a lot of use. And if we had an issue, or we knew a big event in advance, we thought we needed extra, we could try to lease, you know, or rent a few of them for a short period of time. But I think it's certainly worth having one.
For the size
good
of our
working,
town, I
yeah.
think it's good to have one.
It's worth to have at least one that we own, so.
Thank
Jim,
you.
can I ask you one more quick question, because we haven't talked about this in months? Are there Have you had any more PCAS readings, test results at any of the pump stations that would require additional testing or anything that is noteworthy on the upside?
So, good news for our well 3. If you remember, well 3 was our next worrisome well, and we had that around 16, 17 for months. That's tested monthly. The last testing we did on that was 12.6. And again, maybe that's because of wet weather season. I can't explain it. And the others are all holding the same. There's well 5, or actually we're running well 6 right now. That's right around the 9 point whatever. And once you hit the trigger at 10, then you go into a monthly testing. Anything below 10, you do that quarterly. So our wells 4, let me hopefully said it right, well 4 and wells 5 and 6 are all quarterly tested, and wells 3 is tested monthly, and 1 and 2, well, it's offline. And then when that comes back online, I don't know what the type of testing will, be required for that. I mean, it better have 0 in it. I mean, if we spend $6 million on it, it better come back with all zeros on it.
Is my memory correct that you changed testing companies sometime last year?
We did a split sample. We sent it to two different laboratories, and the DEP notified me that in doing that, when you look at, there's like this J type thing that when it's on the laboratory table, one thing can get thrown out for another. And then when I thought that, and this water and sewer superintendent also thought that one was much lower than, but they were almost exactly the same, and it was pointed out by the state's laboratory.
Okay.
And I'm afraid of is if we keep on doing, if we do another split sample, and let's say we do well 6, and we know it's been hovering around 9 point whatever, and we send it out to another laboratory, and it comes back at 10 something, you can't hide that number. You got to report that number. You can't say I want it and don't share it with anybody. You have to report it to the state.
Sure.
So,
Okay, I'm just trying to kind of have some awareness for the committee, that's a,
and again, if anybody
Huge
wants
issue for the town.
if you can understand it, once we get a test, every month Deirdre puts it on our website. It's under PFAS and all the numbers are. Every time we get a test back, we put it there.
thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to the agenda, I was remiss, one of the items that I wanted to get onto the agenda, which I forgot to provide the inputs, was the discussion of the fall town meeting warrant items that failed. So that will definitely be on for next week. What I have on the agenda for tonight, next, is kind of a review of the budget presentations that we've had thus far. So that would be police, fire, rescue, library, recreation, and the building department. It's not imperative that we have that discussion right now, although I'm happy to have it. But I don't think it's incredibly important that we have to keep this item. So I'm okay with deferring this. Just take a quick comment or discussion. We can defer that, and you all can leave here with a bit of a homework assignment. If you have questions, part of this is if you have questions and if we need follow-ups on those items, that we have that discussion and convey those questions, communicate those questions for either a written response or perhaps the department comes back. So in terms of, is there any discussion to be had on that? We'll defer that particular item.
I have a question on something else that you said,
Please.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Regarding next week, it's warrant articles that failed. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah,
please?
so Article 9, if you remember, specifically, I've been asked by the Select Board for to provide the FinCom's opinion on whether it's important for us to change the name of FinCom, and I'm not sure exactly what we came up with, last year what was in the warrant. I'll have that warrant, we'll have that warrant with us when we have the discussion. But it's all those items. It's the charter committee. We have the opportunity, the select board has the authority to put what they want on the warrant. There's nothing that says we have to be reactive to that. We can be proactive and say, we can provide them that it is the FinCom's recommendation that certain items be taken up again. For instance, the social worker that was proposed to be funded out of the marijuana impact funds, that I think I don't have a read as to whether that would pass, but it didn't pass mainly because it was presented. I think the consensus was that it wasn't presented properly, and it was confusing as to whether it was going to be a school social worker or a town social worker. But I think there was support for there being a social worker. We could go through those warrant articles that didn't pass. The Board of Health article, or the language, the bylaw for foundation height, was another one that didn't pass. If that's important to us as the FinCom, we could say we recommend that get put on there, and I would like to communicate that to them now while the warrant is open, and go through those. It doesn't have to be an
If I could have
extensive
one-
discussion.
If I could have one more
Sure.
follow-up?
Yep.
Will the select board be presenting the warrant articles that went from 3 to 5 members? The
That would-
town clerk, this is all happening next week?
I don't know if they're not going to present anything. It would be for us to say, we recommend
This be brought
that
up
it be
again.
brought up, and
So
then it
there's
not
no
just
one-
die.
The select board is not making a formal presentation?
They are
to the
not, no,
FinCom?
no. The select board
Because-
is going to be here for the school's presentation, I believe. I think that they actually will have a meeting for the school board presentation, but not for this. This is for us to provide them our input, our recommendations. They can do what they want with them. No different than we did, it was 2 years ago or 2 town meetings ago, when we provided a recommendation on, I think it was HCA funding, or actually it was the enterprise funding, Kathy. We told them what we thought about how they should fix the allocation of costs between general fund.
The FinCom was so supportive of that. May I request town council next week, Mr. Chair? I have some questions on the, and I don't know who's going to be in a position to answer any questions that the Finance Committee may have.
I will think about that and let you know. Okay? Okay, so does anybody want to have any discussion on the presentations we had last week, or can we defer that?
Well, I would like to speak up on that, if I might, on the rec budget.
Absolutely.
Kim, I was doing it remotely, and Kim broke up an awful lot. I certainly don't understand the budget, where there was the teen coordinator in last year's budget, not in this year's budget, but then she's got an
Chris-
above service.
Chris Fogarty, maybe?
Yeah.
Are you talking?
Are you talking about the
Kim?
library,
Kim.
though?
Yeah, library.
Recreation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Rec
recreation.
department.
Yeah,
I
right.
meant to, yeah, Chris Fogarty is what I thought I said. So I just do not understand this
Okay,
budget.
okay.
There's a little bit of clarification in the minutes, but it still seems a little gobbled to me
Sure.
what they're really doing.
Sure. I think, I'm not sure that we need to invite her back, but I would think you and I should have that discussion, and we can have it in committee as well. You can watch the video, that particular part of it, so that you can get it.
Right.
I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any clarification needed. And then once we do that, I'm happy to invite her back, just to make sure that we're using her time, efficiently. So,
Yeah, and she's got supplies going from 9,000 to 0. Yeah,
and the reason, we can answer that.
okay.
An additional note is that John took some time to extract some of the summary information from the budget, and had asked that, when are we and how are we going to have kind of a holistic discussion of the budget, including, I think, of concern to you or of interest to you is the revenue numbers. And that will likely come
That's later.
when Carol has her opportunity to present the overall budget, and when Mike presents. So Carol's going to present not only her department information, but we'll go over the whole budget, including the revenue numbers, And that is going, right now is scheduled, I think, for the is it next week? 16th, so it's next week. Okay, and then next week, one of the things that I used, some of the data that you'd given me in a discussion that Mike and I have had is the departments, I'm not gonna march all of the departments in here, especially if they don't have changes to their, proposed budgets. So anybody that had, a nominal increase to their budget that was noteworthy or I had questions on, or if they had capital requests, that's who you can anticipate is gonna be here next week, depending on their availability, which we haven't firmed everybody up. The following, so that's the 16th. The 23rd will be the school department. And then, I can't remember who was it's either the 5th or 6th. There's some, actually, the citizens petition will likely be one of those first two meetings in April.
Okay.
I sent you email on that. And then the town administrator and the executive departments will also be upcoming, so.
Is there a master list of what to anticipate on all these meetings going forward, or?
There are, so you can, trying to think how I could best convey that to you. I'll lay that out next week in
Okay.
meeting materials, draft agenda. The agendas go in for next week's meeting. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll send it to the town administration. They'll post it.
Yeah.
So, but they typically don't post until Monday for when the actual, the latest that they can post the agenda to have a meeting on Wednesday is Monday. But I can send out a draft agenda for who you can anticipate
That would be great.
Yeah.
will be coming
That'd be
to
helpful in
us.
terms
Yeah.
of preparation.
Yep. And we're just really still confirming. But just so you know, the school is here on the 23rd. That's a big one.
Yep.
There are several smaller department budgets being presented next week, as well as town administration, town finance, and then the 5th, 6th. Then we'll start going over, Mike, when would you be able to go over the warrant with us?
I would probably gear that towards the 30th, is the meeting on the 30th?
There is,
Yes.
on March?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the select board is meeting on Monday, the 14th, and meeting again on the 28th. So
Okay.
for the meeting on the 28th, I should have a pretty solid draft warrant in front of them that evening, so I can simply have it available to go through with the finance committee 2 days later.
Okay. So I hope to be able to give you a sense that that's, something that everybody's looking for, and that's absolutely reasonable, is to give you a timeline of when we project to have presentations, when we'll have discussions and votes, and then there's a number of requirements of us to produce a report, to produce discussion or article comments, motions. So there's a number of different items, especially towards the end of April, that will be required to have deliverables from each of us to make sure that, that we're able to keep on track with town meeting. And town meeting is scheduled for May 2nd. So there'll be pre-town meeting. Prior to that, there'll be a number of deliverables, and I'll lay that out for you for next week. Okay?
That would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have some minutes to review and approve. So the minutes from the 3rd of March, which you had given us 2 meeting minutes. I only have one of them tonight.
Correct, I
so-
can get you the other one. It's from the previous meeting before this one.
Okay, so we'll just do the 3rd tonight, and then the previous meeting we'll do next. Okay? And this is the point of the meeting where I'll take a motion.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the last, March 3rd, Finance Committee.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as written. Discussion. No discussion heard. All those in attendance and in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? And I don't think there were any abstentions. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay?
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
I
Boyardi?
propose that we adjourn.
Second?
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.